When I walked into the room, everyone smiled. Not the warm kind. The polite kind. The kind people give when they already think they know how the meeting will end. It was a glass conference room on the 31st floor. Morning light poured in from three sides, reflecting off steel, screens, and faces that had rehearsed confidence for years. Jackets were pressed. Laptops open. Coffee cups placed just right. I was late by 2 minutes. That alone was enough for a few raised eyebrows. "There he is," someone said lightly. A couple of smiles widened. Someone chuckled under their breath. I nodded once and took the only empty chair at the far end of the table. No one offered to move. The meeting had already started. This was a quarterly review, big numbers, bigger egos. Directors, senior managers, external consultants. People who liked to hear themselves summarize things they didn't build. I wasn't supposed to be important today. That much was clear. My manager leaned back in his chair, hands folded, relaxed. "We'll circle back to you later," he said, not unkindly. "Let's hear from finance first." I didn't argue. I listened. For the next 40 minutes, slides flicked across the screen. Charts. Forecasts. Growth curves that looked impressive if you didn't know what had been quietly holding them together. People spoke confidently. Wrongly, but confidently. I watched them misinterpret data I recognized instantly. They praised decisions that had been patched together at the last second. They dismissed risks that had already begun to surface beneath the surface. No one noticed my silence. That was the mistake. Because silence isn't absence. It's restraint. At one point, a senior consultant glanced at me and smiled again. "You've been quiet today," he said. "Everything okay?" The room looked at me. Smiles. Curious. Mildly amused. "Yes," I said simply. "Everything's okay." He nodded, satisfied, and turned back to the screen. That's when I realized something. They didn't just think I was unimportant. They thought I was irrelevant. The meeting moved toward its conclusion. My manager checked the time. "All right," he said. "Any final thoughts before we wrap up?" He looked around the table. No one spoke. Then, almost as an afterthought, his eyes landed on me. "You wanted to add something?" he asked, already halfway into standing. Every face turned toward me again. Smiles returned. Expectant. Patient. Certain. This was supposed to be brief. A harmless comment. Something they could nod at before moving on. I slowly closed my laptop. "Yes," I said. "I do." The smiles held. For now. I didn't rush. That was the first thing they noticed. People who expect nothing from you always get uncomfortable when you take your time. I stood up slowly, walked to the screen, and asked a simple question. "Before we close," I said, "can I pull up one file?" My manager hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. "We're a bit tight on time." "I'll be quick," I replied. That word again. Quick. It made them relax. "Go ahead," he said, sitting back down. I connected my laptop. The screen flickered, then changed. No flashy slides. No polished animations. Just raw data. Tables. Logs. Timelines. The smiles softened, then froze. "This," I said calmly, "is the back-end performance data for the last 6 months. Not the summary. The actual operational feed." The consultant frowned. "That's not what we were given." "I know," I said. "This is what was filtered out." A few people leaned forward now. Not smiling anymore. I clicked once. Error spikes appeared on the screen, small at first, then clustering. A timeline scrolled horizontally, red markers growing denser toward the present day. These aren't projections, I continued. They're already happening. My manager straightened. That doesn't align with our reports. That's because the reports end here, I said, pointing to a clean cutoff. The system stopped logging critical failures at that point. Silence crept in. I clicked again. Emails appeared. Internal. Timestamped. Subject lines scrolled down the screen. Temporary workaround. Do not escalate yet. We'll address it next quarter. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. The consultant cleared his throat. Why wasn't this disclosed? Because, I said evenly, disclosure would have required admitting that the growth you're celebrating is unstable. A director spoke up. Are you saying the numbers are wrong? No, I replied. I'm saying they're fragile. I moved to the next slide. Customer churn. Quiet cancellations. Support tickets flagged but never categorized as risk. The system is compensating, I said. For now. But it's doing it by burning margin and stability. My manager looked pale. This is serious, he said. I nodded. It gets worse. Another click. A compliance threshold flashed briefly before settling on the screen. We crossed this line 3 weeks ago, I said. Legally, it should have triggered a mandatory review. Someone whispered, why didn't it? Because the alert was rerouted, I answered. No one laughed now. No one even shifted in their seat. The consultant slowly removed his glasses. Who built this architecture? I met his eyes. I did. A pause. Then, who understands it end to end? I do. The room felt smaller suddenly. My manager tried to speak, stopped, then tried again. Why are we seeing this now? Because you asked if I had anything to add, I said calmly. And because this meeting ends in 5 minutes. I let that sit. Finally, a director asked the question no one wanted to ask. What happens if this goes public? I didn't answer immediately. I walked back to my chair, sat down, and closed my laptop. Then, I said, no one in this room will be smiling. No one looked at me. They were too busy looking at the screen. No one spoke for a long moment. Not because they were confused. Because they were calculating. People with power don't panic immediately. First, they measure how exposed they are. Who knew what? Who said what? Who could be blamed if this room ever stopped being private? The director who had asked the last question cleared his throat. We need a short break, he said. No one objected. Chairs shifted. Phones appeared. Messages were typed with stiff fingers. Smiles didn't come back. I stayed seated. Still. The consultant walked toward the window, staring out at the city like it might offer answers. My manager stepped aside with 2 executives, their heads bent close together, voices low. I didn't listen. I didn't need to. When the meeting resumed, the tone had changed completely. The director sat forward this time. We're not ending this meeting, he said. We're restructuring it. Eyes moved. Not to my manager, not to the consultant. To me. Can you walk us through remediation options? He asked. The question wasn't polite. It was deferential. Yes, I replied. I opened my laptop again. This time, no one interrupted. I outlined the fixes calmly. What would work? What wouldn't? What would require immediate approval? What would expose past decisions if handled incorrectly? As I spoke, I saw it happening in real time. The power shift. My manager didn't speak unless spoken to. The consultant stopped offering opinions. Directors took notes, actual notes. At one point, someone asked, "How long have you known this?" I didn't look up from the screen long enough to warn people who didn't want to listen. No one challenged that. After 90 minutes, decisions were made. Emergency review. Immediate audit. Restricted communications. And one more thing. The director folded his hands and said, "We need you leading this. Not helping. Not advising. Leading." My manager swallowed. "Of course," he said quickly. "That makes sense." He didn't look at me. The meeting ended without the usual chatter. No jokes. No small talk. People filed out quietly, eyes forward, avoiding eye contact. As I packed up, the consultant passed by me. "I misjudged you," he said softly. "Yes," I replied. He nodded and kept walking. In the hallway, my manager finally stopped me. "You could have said something earlier," he said, voice strained. "I did," I replied. "You smiled." He had nothing to say to that. By the end of the week, the office felt different. Meetings were shorter. Decisions slower. Words chosen carefully. People who used to dominate conversations now waited to be invited. And when I walked into rooms, people didn't smile anymore. They looked down. Not out of fear. Out of awareness. Because the most dangerous mistake they'd made wasn't laughing. It was assuming the quiet one had nothing worth saying.